Bless you two fig Newtons. What's the deal?
He really does do good impressions.
The hilarious Larry Storch, today on Pop Goes the Culture. Hi, I'm David Levin, and welcome to another fortuitous episode of Pop Goes the Culture. Today, the final segment of my three-part interview with the legendary Larry Storch, best known for his role as Corporal Agarn on the sitcom F Troop. This time, we'll discuss his friendship with Forrest Tucker, what it was like doing the Johnny Carson show, the origins of the Heckowi Indians name, how Storch broke into showbiz, plus working with the great Lucille and Desi Arnaz.
You were going to tell me something more about Forrest Tucker?
Oh, Forrest Tucker and I were on the show. The guy who had the grizzly bear, Grizzly Adams, and the star of the show was Bozo, the grizzly bear. Well, Forrest Tucker and I got to the set, 7 o'clock in the morning, and there was Bozo, the grizzly bear, and his trainer was throwing marshmallows to him, and the trainer said, "Marshmallows keep him in a good mood, keep him happy. He's been grouchy all night. But don't worry, ain't nothing for you boys to worry about. He's been defanged and declawed." And Forrest Tucker said, "Let me tell you something about grizzly bears. If they want to, they can gum you to death." And Tucker said to me, "If there's any trouble, follow me right through the door." And I looked around and I said, but there is no door. He said, "Follow me. There'll be a hole in the wall." Well,
Did you guys work together not just on those two things, not just that F Trip? You went to one more show, right?
yes, we did another show called The Ghostbusters. The original Ghostbusters we were. We were a gorilla, and Forrest and myself, and we were Spencer, Tracy, and Kong. The gorilla was Spencer, and Forrest Tucker was Kong, and who was I? Tracy, yeah. And the gorilla did all the thinking, he did the cooking, drove the car, planned everything. And we were together for one season. It was a lot of fun.
You guys made a good comic team, didn't you?
Yes, we did. I was very honored to be with Forrest Tucker.
Tell me about some of your famous bits from F Troop. The "Who Says I'm Dumb" lasts all the way to today. Was that a written thing? How did that sort of?
It was a written thing, but it turned out to be so good. Who's at the beginning of the show they'd say, "Agarn, I don't know why everybody says you're so dumb," and I took it as a compliment, And then finally, at the end of the show, 30 minutes later, it would hit me. Who says I'm dumb? And so that became a very popular catchword.
That was one of the best. One of the best little bits that they used to do, and there were a bunch of those things. What was the origin of the name, the Heckowi Indians?
The original name? The original name was a rather an off-color joke, and they said we can't use that, so you can just forget about it. But they said, "Heckowi, where the heck are we? Where the heck are we? We're lost. Where the heck are we?" And so that's the way we solved that problem.
It was originally Johnny Carson used to use that joke apparently when it was the F word, because we get by the censors.
I never knew that.
Yeah. Yeah, you were on the Carson show a bunch of times.
Yes, I did the Carson show
What was he like?
3 or 4. He was to me, I never really got to know Johnny Carson, but he was very nice to me, and he always invited me to sit down next to him after I did my turn. And I did one show with him, I remember. I said, "We're all different. Inside of us, we're all different." And I did, we all have a weak spot, whether it's children or dogs. And I did this one character, he should have been on The Sopranos, but he had a bird, And he would talk to that birdie like that. Who's your daddy's crazy, crazy? And then when Johnny would ask him a question, he would, well, wait a minute, John. I refuse to answer that on the grounds it might tend to incriminate me. Your daddy's little, and I did that different. And then I got mad at some, and I crushed the bird and I threw it away. And then when I saw what I had done, I came apart at the seams, that sort of thing. So Carson let me go through with that. He was very nice to me.
You must have loved that.
He did.
He's
Well,
always a really good audience for comics.
he was, wasn't he?
He was really good.
He had more comics along the road.
Amazing. Larry, how'd you get started? What was your first gig that you did?
I got started in 1940. In 1940, I was 17 and I never finished school. As a matter of fact, they asked me to leave school. And my mother crying, and the principal said, no, let him go out and do what he wants to do. But he's not staying in the, I think I was in high school for 20 minutes. And then I started doing impersonations in amateur hours when I was 14 or 15. And I could do a Lionel Barrymore, Jimmy Cagney, you dirty rat, I'm going to give it to you, just like you gave it to my brother. And then it was Edward G. Robinson. And so I started in amateur hours doing impersonations. But I was good with dialects. And I was able to do Irish and Scotch. There was no trouble there, And so I won a lot of contests. The money of $3 if you won. But back in 1937 and 1936, that was a lot of money. And so little by little I got into nightclubs. And one of my first nightclub engagements was in Boston, Scully Square, the Crawford House. It was 1941. And Frankie Fontaine, the guy who played Mr. Guggenheim, Crazy Guggenheim, on Jackie Gleason. He said to me, you're going to open tomorrow night. You got any Irish jokes? No. And do you know Frankie Fontaine sat down with me and he wrote out 3 dynamite Irish jokes for me to tell in Boston. What better place to tell an Irish joke than in Boston? And he saved my life, Frankie Fontaine did. And I never forgot him for that. I loved him for that, for what he did for me.
So you moved on from you were doing the stand-ups and nightclubs. Is that how did you break into film, TV, radio? Radio was an odd thing. When the war was over, nightclubs, you asked me about nightclubs. Well, that's how I got into nightclubs. In those days, there were so many nightclubs. You could be fired, which I was many times, and get a job around the block in a nightclub right around the corner, which happened to me in Worcester, Massachusetts. I worked Putnam and Thurston's. I was fired opening night, went around the corner and got another job in another nightclub, and that's the way it was. Today there are no nightclubs, and I think I came up along with a lot of my peers in the best of times. There was vaudeville, and there was nightclubs, and more opportunity. Radio, when the war was over, I hitchhiked in my sailor suit. All you had to do from the West Coast to the East Coast, standing there on the highway in your sailor suit and do that, you got a ride. I ended up in Palm Springs at a bar. Phil Harris was sitting next to me, and he said, I see you're a musician. That's the way I was billed, as a musician in the service. What did you do? I said I was able to entertain. He put me in a car. He heard me do Frank Morgan. He put me in a car and he sent me back to meet Bing Crosby and those people, and they put me right on the Kraft Music Hall. But Phil Harris did that for me, all by accident. Go figure a career. Accidents. You never know.
No.
What was it like working with Bing Crosby?
I didn't work with Bing Crosby. It was his company or something like that. It was his outfit.
So I bet radio must have been a great place for someone with your ability to change voices.
Oh, I did a lot of work for on the Kraft Music Hall with Frank Morgan and all of the guests. So.
Did you ever do your Frank Morgan for Frank Morgan?
No, I never did. I remember before the show started, we were just about to start, and over the loudspeaker, the loudspeaker said, "Mr. Morgan, your fly is open." Morgan said, "What? Your fly is open, Mr. Morgan." "My fly is open." And he said, "Well, as the great Russian count once said, in the house of the dead, let all the windows be open."
Wow. What was your first TV appearance? Do you remember?
Can't remember my first TV show.
Did you do live stuff during the 50s?
Pardon me?
Did you do live or did you do,
It was live, yes.
what was it like doing live TV?
Oh boy, you really had to know your lines. And the director would say, "Don't anybody, in a dramatic show, don't anybody get up off the floor until I holler cut. Too many of you guys dead men, have gotten up and walked off the set before I yelled cut. We can't have that. Wait until I yell cut."
Did anything ever go wrong while you were doing a live show?
No, not really, not that I can remember, no.
What were some of the other shows that you remember fondly that you worked on?
Oh, The Love Boat. I remember it's so many great stars on Love Boat. Karen Valentine and you name it. Here I stop her. I can't. John.
Who'd you play opposite? Who was your love interest on The Love Boat?
I played a jewel thief on with Harold Gould, John Shuck, Karen Valentine, and there were stars that I didn't have. No, I can't remember too many of them. But I remember they said to the captain, everything, there were parties and women in bikinis and it was New Year's Eve and someone came to the captain and said, "Captain, we have a problem in our engine room." And the captain said, "Engine room? We have an engine room?"
Let's see. I'm just sort of skipping around to try to find some of the other stuff. Then you worked on The Mothers-in-Law
With the great Kay Ballard and
Eve Arden.
Eve Arden, yes. That was a joy. Kay Ballard is one of the great talents on the American stage. Really marvelous. And I've known her 55 years. She started out with Spike Jones, and her name was Little Miss Mischief. And I've known her 55 years, and I'm proud of it.
Desi Lou Studios. What was it like working there?
Who?
At the Desi Lou Studios?
Yes,
That's where they did.
you're quite right. Desi Lou Studios.
Mm-hmm. Did you work with Desi Arnaz at all, or any of those guys?
I worked with Desi Arnaz at Ciro's nightclub right after the war was over. Lucille Ball auditioned me, and she said, "I want you to do 10 minutes before Desi comes on at Ciro's nightclub." She heard that I did impersonations, and she said, "That's what we would appreciate your doing before Desi comes on." So that was my first engagement after the war was over. And I was never sure they were going to keep me, so I never let go of my sailor suit. I kept it in the closet. And then after that, I worked the Copacabana. I'd heard so much about the Copacabana. It was world famous. And when I got there for a rehearsal, I was met by a fellow named Aiupa Provenzano. And he said to me, hey kid, can you drive a car? I said, yes, sir. I drove a truck in the Navy for a while. I can drive a car. You know New Jersey? I said, well, if someone sits next to me and said, take a left, take a right, I can drive. Another thing, kid, I said, Mr. Provenzano, I've got to rehearse my jokes. And he said to me, the jokes will take care of themselves. You just be ready to drive. Huh? And I thought, what have I gotten into here? You know?
You did an Alfred Hitchcock episode?
Yes, I did.
What was that like?
Oh, boy, the Alfred Hitchcock. That was wonderful. It was done by a fellow named, I think, Barney Gerard directed me. Alfred Hitchcock. Indeed, yes. And there was one, you weren't supposed to make any mistakes on that one. And I really studied my script extra hard, did my homework on the Hitchcock show.
Did you get to meet Hitchcock?
No, I never did. I never met Alfred Hitchcock.
Seems like we've covered some really you're hysterical, by the way.
Pardon me?
You're really funny. I rarely cry during an interview. Normally, I'm trying to make the other person cry and do my Barbara Walters, but when anytime I got tears coming out of my eyes from laughing, it's a good interview for me.
Oh, thank you.
Larry, thank you so
My
much.
pleasure.
This was such a pleasure.
That's it for this conversation. I'm David Levin, and you can follow Pop Goes the Culture on Twitter at PopGoCulture, Facebook, or email me at popgoestheculturetv@gmail.com. And please, don't forget to subscribe and share us with your friends.